Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Objective. Today we have the collective, the weekly collective on Thursday. The collective, if you've noticed, has been growing smaller and smaller and smaller. I guess you wouldn't call that growing; it's shrinking. It's shrinking by the week, but it actually vacillates back and forth. And today it's just me, Mark Pellegrino, and Amanda Maxham, and we are going to be talking about toxic relationships. Now, the first topic I think Nikos wanted to talk about was like bad dating experiences, but I really have no relationship to bad dating experiences. I don't know if you do, Amanda. So, do you? Do you have any
Yeah, I
good
mean,
bad?
I don't know. I don't know if this idea of like the horrible first dates gone wrong. I mean, I can tell
Yeah,
you
that's what it
about
was.
some things that I've done that were horribly wrong. So
Okay.
if you like,
Maybe we
I
could
don't
talk
know.
about that as a subtopic. But since
Okay.
since since I come from an actors community, I don't know if you're going to be able to integrate these two ideas. I didn't date that much. I
Mm.
had tons of relationships, but I never had that like dating experience where you're trying to find that perfect person. I was in a circle. We all had the same interests, and we all just sort of fell in and out of love with one another. So the dating thing doesn't move me, but the toxic relationship thing, now that is something to really talk about. I don't think you've lived unless you have had at least 12 toxic relationships to go through. Our producer Dylan has apparently had no toxic relationships, so he's going to be somebody to admire. But Amanda, I want to go to you first. Since you apparently have had a toxic relationship, tell us a little bit about it. You don't have to get too personal, but tell us how you fell into it, how you realized it was toxic, when you realized it was toxic, how you got out of it, and how to avoid getting into a toxic relationship in the future.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot. So let me start with a small example of something that was like mini toxic. So I had been dating this guy for a while, and we're watching a video on kung fu, like instructional video, and there was some images from 9/11 in there, which I had never really seen. The horrible, the men jumping off the building because they didn't want to be burned alive, and I had never seen that. I was certainly wasn't expecting it in a kung fu instructional video, and I was just horrified and really upset. And he was like, thought it was kind of funny, and he was like, why are you so upset? Those people deserve to die or something." And um,
Did
I
he
had
actually
this,
say those people deserved to
yeah,
die?
that they were like, they knew that I don't know, it was some conspiracy thing, like how they had known that the attack was coming and they should have been able to get out on time, and it was their own fault for not. I don't know. It was horrible, and I just had this realization of like, whoa, who is this person that I thought I knew?
How long have
So,
had you been going out with him when this information was
a
revealed to you?
a, a while made me feel really like, I don't know, stupid. Like I
But
didn't.
did he? But there was at no point in the beginning of the relationship that he seemed to reveal a tendency towards conspiracy theories and
No.
stuff. Or so this happens. This moment happens where he's laughing at this terrible tragedy during the middle of a kung fu video, which I don't see the integration either. But what then happened? How much longer did the relationship last after this horrible side of his personality is revealed?
Not much longer. I was so horribly confused by like what had I missed? Why didn't I realize this was happening? And then I really had to puzzle it out because I liked him, but is it that I don't know, am I just, overreacting to some small thing? It's not really a big part of the person's personality. I mean, these are really hard questions. And especially when emotions are involved, it's like, I don't know it's hard to sort those things out.
I think people on the outside, from the outside of a toxic relationship, think they're self-evident questions. But like you said, when you're in the middle of it, your emotions are engaged with the person and you have investments with them. They don't become so easy.
No.
And maybe they should. Did you have the same kind of philosophy then that you had now, or did you have it as deeply integrated then as you
I
have now?
I would not have had it as deeply integrated. I would have still been in the stage of like really trying to to figure things out in the philosophical regard and really live it. Certainly not as mature of a person.
So do you think part of this problem of getting into toxic relationships is that we're taught that love is this animal thing? It's just a thing that happens between two people. It's a chemical reaction. It's beyond your control. And there's nothing about that process that is on the conscious level. So love isn't a response to values. It's something else that you can't put your finger on. And most of us, I think, have more or less ingested that idea, right? And so when we don't feel that certain something for somebody, it must not be love, even though it may in fact be. What do you think of that? Do you know that? I mean, because toxic relationships are something that almost everybody has experienced, and almost everybody. I know people who could say, "I love this person, but I don't like them." Now, that concept no longer makes any sense to me whatsoever.
Really?
Right? It doesn't. Does it to you? Does that idea like you love somebody but you don't like them? Does that make sense?
No, it really doesn't. Although I can see that if you're in the stage of like your just emotions have their own timeline, and sometimes it takes time for them to turn in the same direction as your thoughts, if that makes sense. So I can imagine there could be a period of time when you're like, this person is not the person for me anymore. And my thoughts are like, I'm sort of rationally thinking through that, but my emotions have not yet followed. In suit
So you're saying that represents your head is telling you what's true. You don't like them because of all that they represent, but you're still emotionally connected to them in ways that you don't understand.
Yes. It takes a while to sort things out.
It does, doesn't it? So so this guy gets the boot. Now, did he stay the night? Be honest. Did he stay the night after that observation?
Probably. I don't remember.
And was that the most awkward night on the planet?
Likely. I think I was just feeling stunned. Like, how could I? Yeah, it was really more of a reflection I felt on me. Like, how could I have missed something that seems so important, and I didn't see it? Why not? Was I, fooling myself? You have all these questions, right? I mean, there's something about love that like shakes you to your core, right?
Right. And especially if it happens to you when you're young. I feel like I had very intense relationships as a young man that were very pure, Romeo and Juliet-esque pure, filled with passion and just head over heels obsessed in the way of a 14, 15-year-old person is with another person. And it was mutual, it was reciprocal. Yeah. And so that when that carries into deeper adolescence, like 19, and then into adulthood, and when you have that same image of love, where you broke up because you were young or you had to move away, and it's still romantic, and then you collide with a personality that is probably a symptom in a DSM-3 manual. You find it hard to navigate that territory. So my first I guess confrontation with the toxic relationship when I was 19, I fell instantly in love with this girl. Literally, I was working at a gas station in the corner. She got off a bus with a friend of hers, and we started talking, and I was like, oh my God, I'm in love. Okay. I knew nothing about this person. I was 19. I'd quit college. I was sort of in a band. I looked like a rocker. I had all the long hair and earrings and crazy stuff. But I had no direction. And no real sense of the world, but I knew instantaneously. Now, Rand apparently knew this when she met Frank O'Connor, right? From the second she met him, she knew she was in love with him, knew she was going to marry him. Now, I'm imagining she was a little bit more philosophically advanced than I was and had different standards than me. But this woman, it took me about a year to get completely away from this person. But at one point in my therapist's office, we took out a copy of the DSM-3. For people who don't know that, that's Diagnostic Statistical Manual, 3rd edition. It has all the, it's a diagnostic manual for psychiatric conditions. We looked up sociopath, and in order to be diagnosed as a sociopath, you need at least 3 of the 12 symptoms to be present. She had 11. Now, the problem with that is people who are sociopathic and malignantly narcissistic are that they're intensely charming and manipulative. Now, she had everybody wrapped around her finger, so I wasn't the only fool for love out there. But I mean, I literally almost went to the very bottom of hell for this person on multiple levels, and it took me a long time to break away. And it wasn't necessarily from a philosophical realization. I didn't have this philosophy anywhere near me at the time. It was just exhaustion and self-preservation that eventually made me leave. Like an animal has to get away from the encroaching fire, even because it's been singed and burned too much, it finally just leaves of necessity.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the only toxic relationship I was in. And I think mainly because falling in love was a animal chemical thing that had nothing to do with values. And eventually, when the values of the other person come up and they're in conflict with yours, yet these animal feelings remain. You're right. Your head and your heart are at war with each other because you don't have, I guess, a synchronized way of looking at the world. Yet, perhaps. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I always felt like I was very naive, which is one of the things that I didn't think. I don't know. I grew up in Wisconsin. I'm not sure. There's certainly evil people there. But I don't know why. I just had this idea that no one was actually really evil in the world, and that was not a good thought to have, because I met men who actually were evil.
And that's true too. But I had the feeling that love conquered all.
Yeah,
like all this person has to see is that I'm real, that I love her, and all this pathology and craziness and drama is going to go out the window. But no, you're right. There are evil people out there. There are people that don't give two shits about you. They don't feel love. They're incapable of it. And they actually like destructiveness. You have another story? I told you my first one, sort of. I could tell you the details, but it would be crazy.
I want to hear the crazy detail. I'll tell you something a little bit lighter from when I was much younger. When I screwed up like a first date, I did something really I feel bad about to this day. So maybe I can just apologize to this person not knowing who they are. So when I was a kid, I kind of lived for the telephone, because I was pretty, shy, and in person was hard for me. But on the phone, it's like I could be this other person and sort of be whoever I wanted. And I love the connection and the surprise of it. You didn't have caller ID, the phone rings, and it's a one-time experience. You either pick it up or you don't, and you don't know who's going to be on the other end of the line. Super exciting. I pick up the phone one night, and it's this boy, and basically he's mistaken me for someone else. He's dialed the wrong number. He thinks that I'm the girl that sits in front of him in English class, and he's calling me because he likes me and he wants to talk to me more. And this was so intriguing to me that I admit that I pretended to be this other girl, and because I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to see.
Wait, how did he get your number? He just looked it up in the directory?
I think he misdialed. I think he meant to dial whatever, Jennifer, and my number was, similar, push the wrong buttons. Amanda picks up the phone.
Here's a crazy story. In the late 70s, there used to be a thing called time. I don't think they have that on the phone anymore. We don't need it, right? You used to dial a number and it would say at the tone, the time will be, and it would give you the time. Well, in the pause between at the tone, the time will be, and the beep or whatever, the line used to be open. It used to be what's known as a party line. And kids discovered this in the summer of 1978. And so in that pause, they would shout out their numbers as fast as they could. And if you could catch the number, of a male or female, whoever it was, you would then call them. And that is the way my brother met his future wife.
This is amazing.
She literally shouted out her number. He got it. They started dating. He was 19. I think she was 16. And then they never stopped. And then they got married. I was the best man at their wedding. And they've been married ever since. They have 5 kids together. They live in Henderson, Nevada. Isn't that crazy?
That is amazing.
Yeah. So just to get temporarily off the topic of toxic relationships, we have a super chat from Allie Beard. Is it from Allie? Well, it says Amanda here. Oh, it's to you, Amanda. This is to you. How would you point out to a friend that they're in a toxic relationship? I know quite a few people like this, but I don't know how to approach.
Okay. Okay, so definitely tricky territory. First thing I will point out is that I've had, friends that we talk about relationships for hours. Clearly, no one ever takes your advice. So that's just one thing to recognize, is that it's never in the history of mankind has it ever happened that my friend took my advice, nor did I ever take her advice. So, but I think you just, a good way to approach it is to use the rationally, or NVC, nonviolent communication techniques. So it's, hey, lady, I've noticed that, I don't know, your man beats you and you seem to keep coming back to him. I don't know. Actually, never mind.
There really is. You're right. First of all, you're right. Most friends don't take your advice on relationships. Usually when somebody's talking about a relationship and a toxic one, they're just venting, right? They're looking for a space, a safe space to be able to talk about the relationship. And I think the best thing you can do is just be that safe space for them to talk about it. Unless, like Amanda's saying, there's somebody who's physically violent, at which point I think you have to, do the best you can to turn them on to the fact that it's not normal, because people in violent relationships like that, one party is exercising a certain amount of psychological control over the other one. The other party is weak, has a low self-esteem, it's lots of self-doubts, very low self-confidence, and the other person is predatorially taking advantage of that, and they need to know that. But I don't know that there is
that's actually good advice. I think somebody said that to me once, and I wasn't ready to hear it or really accept it, but it was very simple and straightforward. It's like, this is not normal. What you're doing is not normal. And it was a simple enough message. It got in my head and I was able to, mull it over and eventually make a better decision. So maybe just something like that.
Yeah, I think since our moral goal in our lives is our happiness, I think that includes relationships. Relationships should contribute to that happiness in some way. That doesn't mean there aren't hard times and rough spots that you have to work through with another person, but are they contributing to your happiness, or are they drawing, joy out of your life? And then you have to see whether or not that's a toxic thing or something wrong with you. I mean, it is a very complex thing, but certainly anybody who's physically and mentally abusing you, you have to realize that it's unhealthy for you. It's an unhealthy place for you to stay, and you as a friend should try to communicate that to the person who's abused. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing the name, but Kamija Bijak gives us €1.99. Thank you. Christopher Smith, $1.49. Thank you. I guess that's Canadian. Ashley Shrugged for $1.99. I had a physically, mentally toxic boyfriend at 15. Scary. You know what's really tough about that? It's when you have a relationship that's like that at 15. That's a formative part of your life, right? That's your brain is still growing. You're still sorting things out, and a lot of your foundation in your future life is laid at that time.
Yeah.
And so that can set a way of behaving in relationships for a very, very long time. It'll take a lot of hard work to overcome if you're having a relationship that's toxic at 15, depending on how advanced you are.
Yeah, it's not just like the relationship that you're in at 15. It's like there can be toxic relationships around you that are unavoidable, like parents that are not, that don't behave in a way that makes sense, even towards each other, but maybe towards you as well. Friends.
I feel like that's true. When we talk about toxic relationships, we focus on the romantic side of things, but there's also the fact of familial toxic relationships. And I bet bottom dollar that many people who find themselves in romantic toxic relationships have grown up in familial toxic relationships as well. And they're just in a world that's familiar to them. And it feels like a kind of death to get to, because they know it, because that's all they know, to eliminate that part of their life. What do you think about that?
Yeah, you get into the pattern. I think it's, I mean, I think this is proven. I mean, I don't know that much about psychology, but I think it's a thing that happens, that you're in a, what happens to you when you're a kid is you perpetrate it again as an adult, or it's part of your life. It's hard to break those patterns. It's what you, like you said, what you're familiar with, what's ingrained in your brain. It's uncool.
Right. Takes a lot of work. Allie Beard for $5. Nothing wrong with listening, but I think that listening can go so far. It gets to a point you can only help those who want to take your advice. Well, that's true. That's true. Best advice in the world won't mean anything to a person who is not prepared to take it. But I don't know, part of growing older, I feel, is looking back and wondering at all of the things I took so seriously before that I didn't have to, and wishing I could have taken seriously the advice that I had in my 20s the way I can now. There's just a time and a place when that stuff can sink in and trickle down, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's part of the tragedy and beauty of being human.
Yeah, you grow in maturity, and then I don't know. It's good.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, just like you grow in maturity, and that's part of what it means to grow up, is that, oh yeah, you have these experiences that you can now integrate and put together, versus this is the only thing I've ever known, and so I don't really have that bigger field of view of what's out there, what's possible.
So that's it. In the end, you just have to grow up and grow older and have more experiences to contrast with the one you're presently in, so that there's something good out there for you.
Yeah, just keep thinking. You got to keep thinking.
This is true. Applejack 815 for $4.99. Thank you. Says, please define narcissism. Isn't it too easy to call someone this without knowing what it really is? Sure. Selfishness gets confused with narcissism a lot. And I don't have a copy of the DSM in front of me at the moment. But narcissism seems to be a focus on self to the exclusion of reality, to the exclusion of other people. And it's not really a promotion of one's interest, but a promotion of something else, like an image of one's self. What would you say, Amanda? Do you have a better suggestion for what narcissism could be?
No, I mean, I get the point here that there is like you said, like a medical definition of what it is. So I don't know.
And I'm not privy to it. But I know that you can sense the difference between a selfish person. A selfish person wants to know, their interests are connected to reality, and so they're not closed to change, whereas a narcissist wants to win and wants dominance and control over the environment in a way that makes them closed to new information, and oftentimes puts you on the losing end of pretty much any argument. So it feels like narcissism is a psychological means by which somebody gains a modicum of control over their environment, and it's often confused with selfishness, which is something else entirely. So Applejack 815, I don't know if that helped, if that made it any clearer. I wish I had the DSM in front of me. Now I noticed that you have Academy Awards there behind you. What is that all about?
Okay, so I have a house in Vegas rented out, and the tenant who lived there apparently had an awards night, and they left they left this really cool backdrop.
There you go. All right.
Decided to use it. It's awards night every night here in my closet.
That's interesting. That's the title of my biography. So well, we could talk about toxic. I could talk about more toxic relationships, but I don't want to bore people with the details, the crazy details. Maybe I'll put it in a biography one day. But I think I think maybe we've come to the end of this particular topic, unless there's something more you want to say. Maybe how to recognize toxicity. Let's give some people hope, and how to stay away from it.
Yeah, again, this is really difficult because you're involved and your emotions often can, when they're that intense, can cloud your judgment. But I guess it's just a matter of always, talking to yourself and keep thinking. It's like, you've seen that movie with what's his face? Anthony Hopkins, I think. And Alec Baldwin, where they crash
The Bear? Is this
the Bear? Okay, the Bear. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, so they crash in the wilderness, right? And Alec Baldwin's like, we're gonna die. We don't have any. It's up in Alaska, and he's kind of freaking out. And Hopkins is like, what most people in the wilderness, they die of shame. And he's like, shame? What the hell does that mean? And he's like, yeah, they have all these thoughts of like, how did I get into this situation? How could this have happened? And it prevents them from doing the one thing that they need to do to survive, which is to think. Mm. And I find that to be so insightful when it comes to relationships, that you can think, how did I get here? Why am I in this situation? And you can put the focus on that. But if you do that, yeah, you'll die of shame, versus doing the one thing that you can do to save your life, which is to think and keep thinking.
Yeah, that's great. And Rand always said, do what you think, not what you feel. And I think that is of primary importance, since our culture tells us that in every respect that's important to your life, whether it's choosing a career or choosing the right person for your life, you should listen to your heart. You should feel more than think, as if your feelings are tools of cognition. They aren't, folks. Rand is right. They tell you about yourself and what you value, not necessarily about the truth of the outside world. For that, you have to think. And when you have that thing, like Amanda had, that split, like, what am I seeing here? There's a cognitive dissonance where your head is telling you one thing, but your heart is telling you another. Oftentimes, it's really smart to go with your head. We have our heads for a reason. They do guide us. Well, Kathleen for 5 pounds says, it always felt so great finally escaping toxic relationships, truly selfish moments. I remember those moments of finally feeling free again. That's right. Nothing better than being a sovereign human being. And you know what? A non-toxic person, a pro-life person, a person who loves you, a person who's rationally guided, will want you to be sovereign as well. So I would agree with you, Amanda. It's always about thinking. Get a philosophy like objectivism that helps you get clarity with the way you see the world, helps you get clarity with your values so you can identify those in other people, and shamelessly go for your values and shamelessly reject what isn't in your value sphere. Life is for living, and your life is for your living and your pursuit of values. Don't make it about somebody else. So anyway, before we conclude here, Life on Earth at 5 Eastern, 10 UK time is coming up. So check that out. It's a great show. And I think we will. Are you going to be in the next collective? The collective of two?
Yeah, it's pairism, I think, is what we've degenerated into.
Yeah, we've gone from the collective to a pair. Pretty soon, it's just going to be one, and it's going to be you. You're just going to be hosting the show, and it's going to be it'll be on physics.
I'll be a benevolent dictator. Don't worry.
I love it.
Too much.
Okay, you could be my benevolent dictator. I love that. All right, everybody. So this is the day. This is the collective, the Daily Objective, the Thursday Collective. Signing off. We'll see you later, folks. Peace.
Bye.